The gleaming silver hull of the Eternal Dominance reflected Earth's blue oceans as it hovered in orbit. The massive Confederation flagship stretched nearly 2 kilometers from bow to stern, its elegant curves housing weapons powerful enough to shatter small moons. Below, appearing like tiny insects in comparison, 3 human vessels slowly approached for humanity's first formal meeting with the Galactic Confederation. Admiral Da-hyun stood on the command deck, hands clasped behind his back. His tall, slender frame was wrapped in a uniform of deep purple with silver accents that marked his high rank. The viewport's enhancement systems highlighted the approaching human ships, magnifying their details for his inspection. "Primitive construction," he muttered, not hiding his amusement. The corner of his mouth lifted in a smirk as he studied what humans called their most advanced vessels. Science Officer Jiu approached, her uniform adorned with the blue symbols of the Science Division. She handed him a data tablet showing detailed scans of the human ships. "The results of our analysis, Admiral," she said with a slight bow. "Their hulls use basic metal alloys we abandoned centuries ago. Their propulsion relies on simple fusion engines, and their weapons—" She paused, allowing herself a small smile. "They appear to use projectile technology and rudimentary energy beams. Nothing that could even dent our lowest-grade shields." Da-hyun scrolled through the data, his smirk growing. "How quaint," he said. "They've barely mastered space travel, and they dare to call themselves a spacefaring species." Commander Yoonji joined them at the viewport. "The diplomatic team reports the human delegation is ready to board. Shall we receive them, Admiral?" "Yes, let us welcome our new friends." Da-hyun emphasized the last word with barely concealed mockery. The human delegation arrived on the command deck 15 minutes later. They looked around with poorly hidden awe at the advanced technology surrounding them. Captain Hansol led the group, his back straight despite being a full head shorter than most of the alien crew. His simple blue uniform, adorned only with a small Earth emblem, looked plain next to the ornate Confederation attire. Da-hyun stepped forward with an exaggerated bow. "Welcome aboard the Eternal Dominance, flagship of the Confederation's 7th Fleet. I am Admiral Da-hyun." Hansol returned the bow with perfect form. "Admiral, I bring greetings from Earth's United Fleet Command. I am Captain Hansol, and this is Ambassador Juwon." He gestured to a calm-faced woman beside him. Da-hyun's eyes narrowed slightly. The human captain's composure was unexpected. He had anticipated more obvious intimidation. "We are pleased to welcome Earth to the galactic community," Da-hyun said, his voice carrying across the command deck. "Though I must admit, your vessels are quite quaint. I was surprised to learn they were your most advanced models." Several Confederation officers didn't bother hiding their laughter. One whispered loudly enough to be heard, "I've seen pleasure cruisers with better armaments." Ambassador Juwon's expression remained diplomatic, though her eyes flashed briefly. Captain Hansol didn't react at all to the insult. "We appreciate your welcome, Admiral," Hansol said evenly. "Our ships serve our needs well enough." "Of course they do," Da-hyun replied with a patronizing smile. "Now, let us show you the true marvels of Confederation engineering. Perhaps you can learn something to improve your own vessels." The tour of the flagship lasted 3 hours. At every opportunity, Confederation officers pointed out systems and technologies far beyond human capabilities. The human delegation asked thoughtful questions but offered little information about their own technological development. Later that evening, a formal reception was held in the ship's grand hall. Floating lights illuminated the vast space as officers mingled with the human guests. Exotic foods from 100 worlds filled the tables while soft music played from invisible sources. Commander Yoonji cornered Ambassador Juwon near a display showing technical specifications of the human vessels. The Confederation had obtained these scans without permission, a fact Yoonji didn't bother to hide. "These shield specifications are particularly interesting," Yoonji said, pointing to the display. "Your flagship couldn't even withstand a minor meteor storm with this configuration." How do you manage interstellar travel without proper protection? Several nearby officers turned to listen, expecting embarrassment from the human. Ambassador Jiwan sipped her drink calmly. Appearances can be deceiving, Commander. We look forward to peaceful relations with the Confederation. Eunji frowned at the non-answer. You misunderstand. I'm offering to help. The Confederation could provide your people with basic shield technology, something suitable for a developing species. That's very generous, Jiwan replied with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. We'll consider all offers of technological exchange carefully. Across the room, Captain Hansol was engaged in similarly condescending conversation with a group of Confederation captains. Your reaction time must be severely limited by your manual control systems, one captain said. Our neural interfaces allow ship response in microseconds. Hansol nodded politely. We manage with what we have. But don't you worry about survival, another asked. One encounter with space pirates using even mid-level technology would destroy your entire fleet. We haven't had trouble with pirates so far, Hansol said simply. As the reception ended, the human delegation prepared to return to their ships. Admiral Dahyun escorted them to the departure bay, maintaining his air of superiority. We look forward to further cultural exchanges, he said. Perhaps next time you can visit one of our actual colony worlds. The experience might be educational for your people. Captain Hansol bowed once more. We would be honored, Admiral, until we meet again. After the humans departed, Dahyun gathered his senior staff in the command center. The mood was light, with several officers still amused by the technological gap they had witnessed. Your assessment? Dahyun asked Science Officer Jiu. They are at least 3 centuries behind our technology, she reported. No threat whatsoever. Barely worth the effort of formal diplomatic relations. Dahyun nodded. As I thought. Assign minimal surveillance to their sector. These humans pose no threat or interest to our operations. Commander Yunji looked thoughtful. The ambassador's response was strange. Not what I expected from a primitive species facing their obvious inferiority. Pride, Dahyun dismissed with a wave. They don't want to admit how far behind they are. Nothing unusual among newly discovered species. No one noticed the small smile Captain Hansol allowed himself as the human ships moved away from the Confederation flagship, resuming their seemingly primitive propulsion methods as they headed back to Earth. The emergency alert blared through the Confederation outpost on Proxima Centauri. Red warning lights flashed across control panels as the skeleton crew rushed to battle stations. Commander Taewon's hands flew across the communications console, his face pale in the pulsing emergency lights. This is Proxima Outpost to Confederation Command. Unknown vessels approaching. They match no known signatures. Request immediate. The transmission cut off as something massive collided with the station's outer hull. Security feeds showed a horrifying sight. Enormous ships that seemed almost alive, with surfaces that pulsed and shifted like muscle tissue. Where they touched the station, the metal began to dissolve. The outpost's final transmission was a data burst containing sensor readings and a single distress code that hadn't been used in over 200 years. Voidborn. The signal reached Confederation headquarters 6 hours later. Within days, 3 more outposts went silent in the same manner. The Confederation Council convened an emergency session. Representatives from 200 species gathered in the grand circular chamber on the capital world. Tension filled the air as General Minjae, head of Confederation Defense Forces, stepped to the central podium. The Voidborn have returned, he announced, his voice grave and steady despite the weight of his words. They've already destroyed our defensive line in Sector 7. Gasps and murmurs rippled through the assembly. The Voidborn were thought to be extinct, defeated centuries ago after a war that nearly destroyed the Confederation. General Minjae activated the holographic display. Above the council, terrifying images appeared. Massive organic ships that resembled nothing so much as deep-sea predators. Their hulls were not metal but living tissue that shifted and adapted before their eyes. These recordings come from our defensive fleet in Sector 7 before they were overwhelmed. Minja continued. As you can see, the Voidborn bioships have evolved. They now adapt to our energy weapons within minutes of exposure. The Council watched in horror as Confederation warships fired advanced energy weapons at the Voidborn vessels. The first shots created burning wounds in the organic hulls, but subsequent hits seemed to do less and less damage as the living ships adapted, developing resistant tissue where they had been struck. They consume everything in their path, Minja said. Planets, stations, ships all become raw material for more Voidborn vessels. Each defeat makes them stronger. High Commander Tahoe rose from his seat. I am mobilizing all available fleets to create a defensive line. We must contain this threat before it reaches populated systems. At the back of the chamber, Earth's representative, Ambassador Juan, watched with growing concern. Earth had only joined the Confederation 6 months ago, and most species still considered humans primitive newcomers. 3 weeks later, the situation had deteriorated badly. The Voidborn had broken through multiple defensive lines, consuming everything in their path. When they decimated the Confederation's 3rd Fleet at Tau Ceti, a system uncomfortably close to Earth, Ambassador Juan requested an emergency meeting with High Commander Tahoe. Earth is prepared to offer military assistance, she said, sitting across from Tahoe in his command office. We can deploy ships immediately to help reinforce the Tau Ceti sector. Tahoe looked up from his tactical displays, dark circles under his eyes from lack of sleep. For a moment, Juan thought she saw a flicker of hope, quickly replaced by the same dismissive expression she had grown accustomed to from Confederation officials. With respect, Ambassador, he replied, folding his hands on the desk. This is a situation requiring advanced military capabilities. We appreciate the gesture, but your vessels would be ineffective. Juan leaned forward. Commander, perhaps you underestimate. Ambassador, Tahoe interrupted. I've seen your ships. They would be consumed in seconds. The Voidborn are adapting to our most advanced weaponry. Your primitive vessels wouldn't even register as threats to them. Juan's face remained composed, but her eyes hardened. Very well. The offer stands should you reconsider. Over the next 2 weeks, more systems fell. Confederation forces began strategic withdrawals from frontier colonies, concentrating their remaining fleets around core worlds. The mining colony on HD 40,000, 307 grams, known to its human settlers as New Sol, found itself suddenly abandoned as Confederation ships disappeared from orbit without warning. Governor Minji stood in the colony's communications center, watching the last Confederation cruiser jump away. The colony's 10,000 inhabitants, mostly miners and their families, were now defenseless. Long-range scanners showed Voidborn ships would reach them in 3 days. They just left us, whispered her aide, staring at the empty tactical display. They didn't even tell us they were leaving. Minji's hands tightened into fists. She had been a pilot before becoming governor, and she knew what Voidborn ships could do. Without help, the colony was doomed. Contact Earth, she said suddenly. The communications officer looked up in surprise. Governor, Confederation protocol strictly forbids direct communication with individual member planets during military operations. The Confederation just abandoned us to die, Minji snapped. I don't care about their protocols anymore. Send the message. Hours later, the communications array picked up a direct response from Earth. Governor Minji activated the main view screen, not caring who saw the tears of relief in her eyes. This is Governor Minji of New Sol Colony, she said, forcing her voice to remain steady. We have 15,000 civilians, and the Voidborn will reach us in 3 days. The Confederation has withdrawn their protection. Please help us. There was a brief pause before a response came through. The screen showed Captain Hansel in what appeared to be a fleet command center. Behind him, officers moved with purpose, already acting on orders. This is Earth Fleet Command, he replied, his calm voice at odds with the urgency in his eyes. Help is on the way. The connection ended. Governor Minji turned to her staff, who looked at her with mixed expressions of hope and doubt. "Will they really come?" asked her aide. "Their ships can't stand against the Voidborn. Everyone knows human technology is too primitive." Minji stared at the blank screen. "They're coming. And somehow, I think the Confederation has been wrong about human capabilities." 3 hours later, the colony's long-range scanners detected multiple ships dropping out of faster-than-light travel on the far side of the system. They displayed Earth identification codes and were moving toward New Sol colony at high speed. In the Confederation Command Center, an aide rushed to High Commander Teo with an urgent report. "Sir, we're detecting unauthorized ship movements near HD 40,307 grams. It appears to be Earth vessels." His voice rose in disbelief. "They're heading directly toward the abandoned colony." Tahoe stared at the tactical display, his expression shifting from confusion to alarm. "They're going to get themselves killed," he muttered, "and possibly make the Voidborn even stronger." He turned to his communications officer. "Send an immediate order for them to withdraw." "Sir," the officer replied after attempting the transmission, "they're not responding to Confederation channels." Tahoe closed his eyes briefly. "Then send an observer ship. Someone needs to document this disaster so the Council understands why we have protocols." As the observer ship jumped toward HD 40,307 grams, Captain Hansall stood on the bridge of Earth's lead vessel, studying tactical displays of the approaching Voidborn fleet. "All ships, maintain formation," he ordered calmly. "Prepare defensive systems and ready all weapons. Let's show the galaxy what humans can really do." Confederation observer Buck paced the command center of New Sol colony, hands clasped behind his back. Through the large viewing window, he watched the slow approach of 12 human ships. They appeared small and fragile against the backdrop of space. His instruments showed 30 massive Voidborn bioships approaching from the opposite direction. "This is madness," he muttered, shaking his head. 12 outdated vessels against 30 Voidborn ships. Governor Minji stood beside him, her face drawn with worry. The colony's 15,000 inhabitants were currently rushing to underground shelters, but everyone knew those wouldn't protect them if the Voidborn reached the surface. "At least they came," she said softly. "The Confederation abandoned us." Hyuk winced at the truth in her words. "I was ordered to observe and report, not to judge military decisions." The tactical display showed the human ships forming a simple line between the colony and the approaching threat. Their hulls looked plain and utilitarian, lacking the elegant design of Confederation vessels. "Those poor humans," muttered Governor Minji, watching the display. "They're going to their deaths." Hyuk nodded grimly. "Their sacrifice is noble, but futile. The Voidborn destroy our third fleet, with technology centuries beyond Earth's capabilities." The Voidborn bioships grew visible to the naked eye now, their massive forms resembling giant sea creatures. Their outer hulls pulsed with eerie light, tendrils of energy reaching out ahead of them. The sight had broken the morale of seasoned Confederation crews. "They're within range of our sensors now," reported a colony technician. "The Voidborn will reach the human blockade in approximately 10 minutes. Hyuk sighed and prepared his recording equipment. His report would serve as both a record of human bravery and a warning about ignoring Confederation protocols. Then the human ships did something unexpected. They suddenly accelerated to speeds that made Hyuk blink in confusion. He checked his instruments, then checked them again. "That's impossible," he said, tapping the display. "These readings must be wrong. No ship with their propulsion system could reach these velocities." The human vessels shot forward at speeds matching the fastest Confederation warships. As they approached the Voidborn, they broke their simple formation, splitting into 3 distinct groups that moved with perfect coordination. "What are they doing?" Hyuk gasped, watching as the human ships executed complex maneuvers his own fleet commanders would struggle to perform. A communication came through on all channels. Captain Hansall's steady voice filled the command center. This is Earth Fleet Command to New Sol Colony. We are engaging the enemy. Initiating Operation Thunderstrike. All units, weapons free. Activate HEI and DAL systems. The visual feed from the colony's long-range cameras showed something astonishing. The human ships began to change. Their outer hull plating separated and fell away like discarded clothing, revealing sleek, advanced vessels beneath. The plain, boxy ships transformed into streamlined predators with gleaming hulls that seemed to absorb light. "They were disguised," whispered Minji in awe. Weapon ports opened along the newly revealed hulls. Instead of energy beams, the ships fired what appeared to be physical projectiles, missiles, and large metal slugs accelerated to incredible speeds. "Kinetic weapons," exclaimed Huck in disbelief. "How primitive." His words died in his throat as the projectiles struck the first Voidborn ship. Instead of bouncing harmlessly off the organic hull as he expected, they tore through, creating massive wounds in the living tissue. Where Confederation energy weapons had been increasingly ineffective, these simple physical projectiles caused catastrophic damage. "How is this possible?" Huck asked, his voice barely audible. The colony's sensors captured something even more remarkable. The projectiles that entered the Voidborn ships detonated inside, releasing clouds of tiny machines, nanites, that spread throughout the wounded bioship. Where they touched, the Voidborn tissue stopped regenerating. 3 human ships surrounded one particularly large Voidborn vessel. They fired in perfect coordination, their kinetic weapons punching holes from multiple angles. The Voidborn ship tried to adapt, its tissue hardening in response, but the human vessels simply adjusted their aim to target different areas. "They're predicting the adaptation patterns," Huck realized. "That's something our best tactical AIs couldn't accomplish." The battle unfolded with ruthless efficiency. Human ships darted between the massive Voidborn vessels, too quick to be caught by the grasping tendrils. When a Voidborn would adapt to one type of attack, the humans would switch to another. One human ship took a direct hit from a Voidborn energy discharge. Huck expected to see it explode or at least lose function, but instead, the ship's hull seemed to absorb and redistribute the energy. It continued fighting without pause. "Their defensive systems," Huck muttered as he frantically recorded the battle. "They're nothing like what they showed us." Within 40 minutes, the situation had completely reversed. 20 Voidborn ships drifted dead in space, their biological systems shut down by the human nanite weapons. The remaining 10 were surrounded, being systematically taken apart by continued kinetic bombardment. The final Voidborn ship, larger than the others, tried to flee. 5 human vessels pursued it, firing specialized projectiles that attached to its hull like leeches. The massive bioship convulsed as the devices injected something into it. Within minutes, it stopped moving entirely. "All targets neutralized," came Captain Hansol's calm voice over the communication system. "New Sol Colony is secure. We are establishing a defensive perimeter and will begin cleanup operations immediately." The command center fell silent. The tactical display showed 30 Voidborn ships, ships that had decimated Confederation fleets, now floating lifeless in space. Not a single human vessel had been lost. Governor Minji turned to Huck, whose mouth hung open in shock. His recording device had slipped from his fingers, floating forgotten beside him in the low gravity of the command center. "Still think they're primitive?" she asked with the ghost of a smile. Huck couldn't find words to respond. He simply shook his head, staring at the display where the true forms of the human ships were now clearly visible. Their design was unlike anything in the Confederation fleet, not because it was primitive, but because it was advanced in entirely different ways. A communication request came through from Captain Hansol's vessel. Governor Minji accepted it immediately. "Thank you, Captain," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "You saved 15,000 lives today." Hansol nodded. "We're sending teams to help with colony security. Also, tell the Confederation observer that we'd appreciate it if he would arrange transport for Voidborn specimens." Our scientists would like to compare notes with Confederation experts. Cuck found his voice at last. You knew about the Voidborn. You were prepared for them. We've been preparing for threats like this since before we met the Confederation, Hansol replied simply. We just didn't advertise it. As the communication ended, Hyuk realized his entire understanding of human technological development had been based on a carefully crafted illusion. And now he had to report to his superiors that they had been wrong, catastrophically wrong, about their newest Confederation members. I need to contact Confederation Command immediately, he said, his voice still shaky. Governor Minji nodded, but her attention was already on the approaching human shuttles bringing security teams to the colony. They're not going to believe you, she said quietly. I'm not sure I would have believed it if I hadn't seen it myself. Silence filled the grand meeting chamber of Confederation High Command. The curved table, made from rare woods of 100 worlds, seated the 12 highest-ranking military leaders in the galaxy. No one spoke as they reviewed Observer Hyuk's report on the New Seoul battle for the third time. Fleet Admiral Da-hyun's face had grown increasingly tight as he watched the footage again. The same humans whose technology he had mocked 6 months earlier had just accomplished what 3 Confederation fleets could not. They had defeated a Voidborn attack force without losing a single ship. The recording must be altered, General Jinwoo said finally, breaking the silence. This level of deception is impossible. Observer Hyuk, standing at attention before the table, shook his head. I verified the data myself, General. The humans concealed their true capabilities behind false hull structures. What we believed were primitive vessels were merely shells hiding advanced technology. Admiral Da-hyun rubbed his temples. In 3 weeks, the Voidborn had pushed back Confederation forces across 17 systems. Now Earth, the planet he had dismissed as barely worth noticing, offered the first real hope of stopping the invasion. The humans request a meeting, he said finally, looking up at his fellow commanders. They have agreed to assist us against the Voidborn threat. The relief in the room was palpable, but quickly replaced by tension when he continued. However, they insist on maintaining operational control of their vessels and tactics. General Jinwoo slammed his fist on the table. Unacceptable. One lucky battle doesn't make them military geniuses. We cannot cede command authority to a species that joined the Confederation mere months ago. Commander Yoonji, who had been quietly studying the technical data, looked up. With respect, General, their lucky battle was the only victory we've had against the Voidborn. Perhaps we should hear them out. Admiral Da-hyun nodded. They are waiting outside. Shall we invite them in? The doors opened, and Ambassador Jiwon entered alongside Captain Hansol. They were accompanied by 4 human officers carrying data devices. The humans bowed respectfully to the assembled commanders, showing no signs of smugness or superiority despite their recent victory. Thank you for meeting with us, Ambassador Jiwon said. We understand the gravity of the situation and wish to offer our full support to the Confederation. Admiral Da-hyun nodded stiffly. Your assistance at New Seoul was unexpected, but appreciated. Captain Hansol stepped forward and activated a holographic projector. Above the table, detailed images of human vessels appeared, both in their disguised form and their true configuration. Our ships are designed using the principle of strategic deception, Hansol explained, his voice calm and professional. We develop technology focused on adaptability rather than raw power. The outer hulls conceal our true capabilities while gathering intelligence on enemy attack patterns. He manipulated the display to show the inner workings of the vessels. Humanity has faced many existential threats in our history. We learned that appearing weaker than you are can be a significant advantage. General Jinwoo leaned forward. Are you saying your entire first contact with us was a deception? Ambassador Jiwon smiled diplomatically. We prefer to call it prudence, General. Earth has old stories about what happens when technologically advanced civilizations meet less advanced ones. We simply ensured we would not be at a disadvantage. One of the human tactical officers stepped forward. Her uniform bore the name Subin and symbols indicating a high rank. Our weapons are specifically designed to counter adaptive biological threats. The Voidborn are not unknown to us. This caused a ripple of surprise among the Confederation commanders. Impossible, stated Commander Yunji. The Voidborn were last seen 200 years ago, long before humanity achieved space travel. Not these Voidborn specifically, Captain Hansol clarified. But Earth has faced similar threats, biological entities that adapt rapidly to energy weapons. We developed kinetic solutions with specialized payloads as a countermeasure. He expanded the holographic display to show the nanite delivery systems. These projectiles carry tailored nanite swarms that disrupt the Voidborn's adaptive capabilities at the cellular level. For 2 hours, the humans explained their technology and tactical approach. The tension in the room gradually shifted to reluctant respect as the Confederation commanders recognized the effectiveness of the human methods. Finally, Admiral Dahyun spoke. "We appreciate your willingness to assist, but your insistence on operational control is problematic. The Confederation fleet has protocols and chain of command that cannot be ignored." Captain Hansol nodded. "We understand, Admiral. We propose a joint command structure. Your ships under your command, ours under ours, but with coordinated objectives and shared tactical information." After much debate, the Confederation commanders agreed to the arrangement. Within days, joint human Commander Yunji found herself aboard the human flagship Defiance as a liaison officer. The ship's interior was nothing like she had imagined. Clean, efficient spaces filled with technology that approached problems from entirely different angles than Confederation science. "Your power distribution systems are remarkable," she told Captain Hansol as they toured the engine room. "Our engineers would have never considered this configuration." Hansol smiled. "Different evolutionary paths lead to different technological solutions. Your FTL drives are still superior to ours, but we excel at energy management and adaptive systems." 3 weeks into the joint operations, the combined fleet engaged a major Voidborn force at Epsilon Eridani. Commander Yunji watched from the bridge of the Confederation flagship as human vessels deliberately positioned themselves to take hits from Voidborn energy weapons. "What are they doing?" gasped a Confederation officer beside her. "They're going to be destroyed." But instead of breaking apart, the human ships absorbed the attacks. Their hulls glowed briefly at the impact points, then reconfigured, shifting materials to strengthen damaged areas. "They're analyzing the attack patterns," Yonji realized, "gathering data on how the Voidborn weapons work." Within minutes, the human vessels had adjusted their defenses. They transmitted the adaptation parameters to the Confederation ships, allowing them to modify their shields accordingly. Then something remarkable happened. The combined fleet executed a complex maneuver that Captain Hansol had designed. It appeared chaotic at first, ships moving in seemingly random patterns. But the result trapped the Voidborn fleet between precisely coordinated waves of fire. Human kinetic weapons tore holes in the Voidborn ships, while Confederation energy weapons, now modified based on human specifications, targeted the damaged areas. The coordination was perfect, each force amplifying the other's strengths. "Remarkable," whispered Commander Yunji as she watched the battle unfold. "Their command structure adapts faster than our most advanced AI systems." The battle ended in a decisive victory. For the first time since the invasion began, the Voidborn retreated, abandoning 3 systems they had previously conquered. On the bridge of the Confederation flagship, Admiral Dahyun received the battle reports with a mixture of relief and lingering pride. "It seems our new allies have much to teach us," he had. When the last Voidborn ship exploded, silence fell across the command deck. Then cheers erupted. Admiral Dahyun looked at Captain Hansol with new respect, admitting he had completely misjudged humanity's capabilities. Weeks later, the Galactic Confederation Council held a special meeting. The Grand Chancellor apologized publicly, welcoming humans as full partners in defense planning. Captain Hansol accepted the apology with dignity, speaking about building a safer future together. In a private moment, Admiral Dahyun asked why humans had hidden their true strength. Han Sol explained simply, in human history, those who appeared weak while hiding strength survived the longest. They didn't know if they would find friends or enemies among the stars, so they prepared for both. The battle changed everything. The once insignificant human fleet became a new model for the Confederation's defense force. By combining human creativity with alien technology, they created something truly extraordinary, a partnership that would protect the galaxy. Humanity had earned its place among the stars, not through boasting, but through quiet preparation, strategic thinking, and ultimate sacrifice.